Once upon a time, there was a young monk, and his name was Abba Bishoy. And he was a monk at the monastery of St. Anthony in Egypt. So St. Anthony was the kind of the father of monasticism. So this is one of the most famous monasteries in the world. And if you know about St. Anthony, he was a hermit. And so Abba Bishoy, the young monk starting out his monastic journey, wanted to be like St. Anthony, and he wanted to be a hermit. So when he got to the monastery, he locked himself in his cell, his monastic cell, and just prayed and fasted, not talking to anyone. Well, one day, one of the other monks at the monastery had a dream. And St. Anthony appeared to him in a dream and said, you must tell Abba Bishoy that he must leave his cell. He can't be a hermit, he must leave. So this monk told Abba Bishoy, knocked on his cell, said, Abba Bishoy, St. Anthony appeared to me in a dream and said, you must leave your cell. And Abba Bishoy wasn't very happy to hear this because he thought he wanted to be a hermit. And he said, well, if St. Anthony wanted me to leave my cell, why didn't he come appear to me? So he didn't listen. He said, if God wants me to leave my cell, he must give me a sign, a clear sign. And so the brother was like, okay. And so he went back in his cell, and he prayed and fasted for 3 days. Prayed and fasted strictly for 3 days. And on the third day, his cell collapsed, right on top of him, crumbled down. And so as he was getting pulled out of the rubble and taken away to the doctors, this brother monk comes to him and says, Abba Bishoy, was that a clear enough sign for you? Now, that story might sound like it was from like a life of a saint. Does that sound kind of crazy, like that could happen? Yeah, and that's something we read about in the lives of the saints. Well, Abba Bishoy is not a saint, not currently. He's actually someone I met. I talked to him when I was in Egypt at the monastery of St. Anthony just a few weeks ago. Okay? So Abba Bishoy now is an old monk. He's now an old monk. And he speaks English, and he was telling us this story. And that's a true story. And so some things we can learn from that is the value of friendship. Even the monks have friends. Even the monks have brothers. No one is meant to live this life alone. As Father said this morning, we as Orthodox Christians are not meant to be alone. And so all monks live in brotherhood. And so another story from a different monk. This monk is Abba Hilaron. I met him at the monastery of El Surian, the monastery to the Theotokos, also in Egypt. And I asked him, said, Abba means father in Arabic, you don't know. I said, Father, how can we take the peace and silence of the desert home with us? What can we do to bring the peace home to our loud and chaotic lives? And Abba Hilaron, he thought for a minute, and then he said, you must have your own mountain. And what he meant by that, St. Anthony had a cave at the top of the mountain, and he would climb up there in a place where he could go to be alone with God. And then Moses climbed up a mountain, and that's where he went to talk to God. And do you know what he said our mountain can be? He said that your mountain in the world is your friends, your spiritual friends, those who you can go and trust and confide in. That's your mountain you can retreat to, is your close friends around you. And so, why does this matter? Well, we say that we must always, we want to always grow closer to God, grow closer to Christ. And there's a saying, you've all heard, we try to live our lives Christ-centered. Christ at the center of what we do. Christ at the center of what we do. And to illustrate why that's so important, can I get 4 volunteers from the front row? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, come up. Don't talk. Okay? So, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So, just line up right here. Okay? Face this way. And now walk that way. Just walk that way. Just walk that way. Okay, you can stop. Now I want you to come in the center. Come in the center. One of you stand here. One of you stand there. One of you stand here. And one of you stand here. And all face the center. Okay? And take a few steps back. Okay? Reach out your arm. Okay, you're that far apart. Now, Where's Father Cosmas? Come stand in the center. Okay, now I want you all to walk towards Father Cosmas. All the way, closer, closer. Now stick out your arms. Now stick out your arms. Are you closer than when you started? Yes. And so, if Father Cosmas is representing Christ, as you walk, live a Christ-centered life and grow closer to Christ, you grow closer to each other, physically as you can see. You can be seated. Okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, another saying that maybe you've heard before is that you are a reflection of the 5 people that you spend the most of your time with. You're a mirror, you're an image of the people that you spend the most of your time with. And so, I want you to think about who do you spend the most of your time with? Are they people that are also leading Christ-centered lives? And you're walking on the same journey towards Christ and you're growing closer to each other. Or, so I had them walk this way, they were just walking the straight line. They weren't focused on Christ, it wasn't Christ-centered. They weren't getting closer to each other, they were just going off. And maybe someone would turn and go adrift, go a different way, not focus on the same thing. So while you all have these amazing friends here at Fanari, right? And these can be your mountain, the people you can confide in, the people that will help you draw closer to Christ. And your friends at school, they can be great, but if they're not also focused on Christ, there's a limit to how close you can get to each other. And so I want you to think about ways. So we have, today's Wednesday, if Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then you go home. I want you to think about ways that you can keep these friendships that you have here alive, because you need each other. One Christian is no Christian. One of my friends at school asked me, who wasn't Christian, he asked me, why do you guys have to go to church? Why can't you just go and pray in your room and do your own thing? And that's just so contrary to what is true, because as Christ said, if two or three are gathered in my name, there I am also. We need each other. We need each other to grow closer to Christ. So as we are getting ready to leave, think about how you can grow closer to each other and keep these connections alive, because it will only serve you well in the long run and in the rest of your life. I'm still in touch with my camp friends from when I was younger. So be a sponge here at Fanari, soak up everything around you, and then when you go out into the sun at home, keep that moisture in, because the sun is hot and it's going to dry you up. So be close to your friends, climb that mountain, and grow closer to Christ always. Amen.